Well, hello everybody. It's Terry Burns here. I'm one of your classmates in the beautiful city of Kiev, Ukraine. And although I know you're going to have to review a whole lot of projects today, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on who we are. My wife Heather and I are missionaries to the Ukraine with the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, and we teach to earn our way here and to support ourselves at Kiev International School. My wife is a career educator. Myself, I was a businessman turned pastor for a decade, and now I'm pastoring and teaching at the same time, and thought I might as well learn how to teach properly if I was going to teach, and that is why I'm studying here at our school. So I've chosen for my project to review a book with you called Every Child Can Succeed by William Glasser, who is one of the theorists that we have studied in our course over the last few months and years for some of you. So let's begin our presentation of mastery learning and cognitive development, and we're going to review the book by Dr. William Glasser, Every Child Can Succeed. I'm going to handle my presentation by beginning with an essential research question. I'm going to get to that in just a second. We're going to have a good look at some of the main tenets of mastery education as applied in the Glasser school, a la Glasser, if you will. And then I'm going to help us have a look at Glasser's version of mastery learning through the eyes of, or through the lens of some of the theorists that we've studied this year. We're going to start with Vygotsky and move on to Erikson. And then I have a special focus group of our own Kiev Cossacks, our high school focus group, and they gathered together for a number of lunch hours, and we discussed whether or not our application of mastery education was working at the secondary level here at Kiev International School of the QSI system. And then finally, we're going to look at making mastery work for the secondary school students. And so moving on, here is the essential question. Author and educational theorist William Glasser, and I repeat, he was not an educator, is not an educator, although I think he's functioning that way. He is a doctor, an MD. He asserts that his version of mastery learning and his accompanying choice theory is an appropriate and universal educational methodology for students of all ages and stages. And so the main research question that I'm asking is mastery learning an appropriate cognitive development strategy at the secondary level? And that's been the topic of a lot of conversation with our Western educated teachers who have come here to teach internationally. So let's look at the philosophy. Well, right away in chapter 1, you're met with a whole lot of information, and the main tenet, the main focus of his book, or thesis if you will, is that every child can succeed. There will be no chance for failure if these principles are applied. He promises that the application of his version of mastery learning is going to be universal in scope, and we'll have a little bit of a look at whether or not his application is universal across gender, across age and stage of development, as we've discussed it in our course. This is the one that I really like. Joy and zero discipline problems are guaranteed. I think they might have to put blindfolders on him if he came into one of our schools so that he wasn't disappointed, because we still have a little bit of a lack of joy here and there, and I can't honestly tell you that we have zero discipline problems in our school. He speaks of the need to eliminate the 7 deadly habits, or getting rid of all external control, as key to creating an environment in school that will facilitate for healthy relationships. And I can't say that I'm probably going to disagree with him a whole lot there. If you have time to read the book, the 7 deadly habits are pretty much the opposites of the fruits of the Spirit. And so as Christian educators, I think that we can all build on that schema, if you'll allow me to use that term. He postulates that educational success is going to be rooted in right social relationships. And we've studied a lot about social relationships. I'm going to spend some time in this presentation discussing social relationships, a la Vygotsky primarily. And he suggests that in the Glasser School, in the Mastery Learning School a la Glasser, that time is just to be a resource, not a ruler, and every child will work at his own speed. And that poses us some issues as we put this into practice, because parents obviously expect their children to get done in a certain amount of time, and they look to us to deliver a 4-year secondary education. They are obviously not too thrilled about paying an extra $17,000 a year so their child can enjoy their 5th year of working at their own speed. And so we have that challenge here as educators. Well, his whole premise, his whole approach is based on something that he calls choice theory. He's written an entire book on it, so if you like the idea of after you've read Every Child Can Succeed, you can move on to one of his other books, Choice Theory. I read it in support of this little presentation here, and it suggests this, that all student behavior, success or failure, will stem from an attempt to satisfy the need to, number 1, survive and reproduce, number 2, to belong and to be loved, and to gain power. And we might want to better use the term respect. It makes more sense. It's not coercive power in the sense that we might first think. To be free, so to have a whole lot of choices in their school experience, and to have fun. So I think most of those elements of choice theory make sense to us. They're intuitive. To survive and reproduce, I don't think our kids probably think a whole lot about surviving and reproducing as they're worried about getting their schoolwork done and succeeding in high school. So according to Glasser, and this is very interesting and the subject of a lot of debate in our system, he is a proponent of eliminating the A, B, C, and D, and F grading system. And so here at our Quality Schools International, Kiev International School, we only have 2 grades. We have A's, B's, and the rest of our nomenclature has us in places of progress and suspension, but never failure. Failure is not an option. And so he suggests, and I thought it made some good sense, that the present numerical grading systems that we use reward incompetence. So if we're willing to give somebody a high school diploma with a smattering of C's and D's, we're putting the stamp on the fact that they have been relatively unsuccessful in completing their high school diploma, that they haven't really mastered the majority of material that they're supposed to master, and that we are sending students out into the world without mastery. And that's absurd, because they have to have skills and things that they can do that are, they're able to take what they've learned in school and apply it to the real world, to real jobs. And so this is his approach to, and his criticism of the current methods of grading. He suggests, lastly, that the ABC system serves elites in order to better position their own kids, so that, especially in your country, the United States, I'm Canadian, so I have a little bit of a different mindset. We're a little more public education oriented, and probably a little more socialist leaning than you folks are south of the border. But he suggests that there's this striving by the elites to position their kids ahead of the rest of the world. And so I'm going to just let you pause and look at this sample rubric so that you understand how we grade. This is the only possibility that can appear on a child's status report other than a D for deficient effort. And I think you will enjoy looking at this rubric that I've pulled out of my world geography course. And it's a sample of how we grade. So every one of our TSWs, or the student will, is going to be assessed on this sort of rubric. So that's